Greetings, chess fans! My name is Arturs Neiksans, I'm the leading Latvian chess grandmaster, and I'm about to show you yet another exciting game in the video series My Best and Most Memorable Games I have played in my chess career. I've been a pretty good level grandmaster, my career high rating was over 2600. I am 4 times Latvian champion, so some of the games I think you're gonna definitely appreciate. So this is the game I played 19 years ago. When I was just a youngster, I was not yet a grandmaster, my rating was 2439, so this was one of the classical games from the Latvian championship, which was a round-robin tournament, and my opponent was Nikolaj Katishonok, who was a very good player at the time. He was about FM level, 2330, well known as a chess coach and with pretty amazing knowledge when it comes to opening theory. So I played e4 because, back then I didn't really know how to play anything else. Only later I would improvise with other starting moves. Back then I was purely e4 player. My opponent played e6, and I have to make a small confession. At a time, I really hated the French defense, and some of this early hate actually transferred to my later career. The reason is that I quite didn't like the open French defense, which starts with moves like d4, d5, either the advanced variation, e5, or the knight c3 or knight e2. There was always something. And that's why about around this age, I started to develop my love for the King's Indian attack. So I played d3, I play knight e2, and I want to play knight f3, g3, bishop g2, which by the way was my very first video in the series, my greatest King's Indian attack ever. So I played e3. Naturally, black doesn't have to play e5, he can play many moves, but here Nikolaj decided to play the most principled choice, d5. I play knight e2. In a nutshell, I'm just avoiding the queen trade. In case the pawn trade happens, I keep my queens on the board. And now instead of c5, he played knight c6. And now this is a bit tricky move, because what he wants, so I'm still going to play knight f3, knight f6, and what he wants to play at some point e5, which is slightly uncharacteristic to the French defense. So for example, if I play here g3, and I want to play the position like a King's Indian attack, my opponent can include a trade. Well, I guess I have to take with a pawn and just play e5. So I could continue fianchettoing the bishop on g2, but after bishop c5, it feels like we're playing some sort of Italian game, where black has a very nice position, castle short, a5, a4, and no issues whatsoever for black. Well, that's why we have to do something else. You might be wondering, how about we try to switch to some sort of a advanced variation of the French, meaning e5, hit the knight on f6, and the boy is after knight e7, played e4. And if you would think about this, indeed, yeah, this is really interesting, because black cannot easily play c5, knight c6, which is one of the core ideas of the French defense. But there's another thing. Black can play f6, and it seems that he is perfectly ready to do this, because he has a knight on c6, the knight on d7, targeting the pawn on e5, and if I take on f6, takes with a queen, so even more, he's going to play bishop d6, short castle, and e5, and there's a very good chance that black takes over the game. So that's why I cannot really do this, and instead I play this smart move c3. So c3 is like a multi-purpose move, but if here black plays e5, now I get to play b4, some sort of a Pirtz idea. So with colors reversed, I want to play b5 in some lines and get to the pawn on e5. So let's say he plays bishop d6, he protects the pawn. Now I play a3, and my idea is to find the right moment to play bishop b2 and c4. Or maybe bishop b2, take on d5, play c4, c5, and potentially in some lines even try to either trap the bishop on d6 or win the pawn on e5. So let's say castles, bishop b2, rook e8, so white always is threatening one of these tricks. So here white can play g3, bishop g2, or bishop e2. So let's say bishop e2, knight e7, c4, and the game continues. But now you see this bishop suddenly jumps to life and is pretty active. So all of this didn't happen. My opponent didn't play e5, he played a5. So he recognized this idea that I want to play b4, so it's not like it's improvisation over the board, this was still some theory. Now I play e5, and there's a difference. After knight e7 d4, you remember, right, what I told you about this f6 idea? Indeed, if I would take on f6, he would take queen takes at f6, he would play bishop d6, shoot castle, and e5. That's correct. But there's a small nuance. Because of included c3 and a5, I get to play bishop b5. And now black can no longer easily get rid of the bishop from b5 because the black pawn stands on a5. He can't play a6. So here, probably the main move is f takes on e5. And I take with a pawn, and he cannot win the pawn. He cannot take on e5 because you see this is a pin. And I just want to play like normal shoot castle, maybe knight b3, knight d4, maybe in some lines even knight d4. Bring the queen in the game like queen g4, queen h5, which is a very characteristic way to play against the French defense. So it's like a common rule that against the French defense, the queen on g4 or even h5 feels very good. So my opponent did something else. After bishop b5, he played knight a7, which is an interesting move because it kind of confirms the usefulness of his previous move. He did play a5, and now he has freed up the a7 square. He's bothering my bishop and trying to somehow undermine my center. So I went back bishop d3, he decided to take on e5, and now I take with the knight, because again, I'm simply following the pattern. The queen has to join the game, so I'm already threatening queen h5 check, so black needs to be super careful. So queen h5, g6, bishop g6, you pretty much probably you know this tactical trick from various just.com puzzles. The rook at h8 is under attack, so he played g6. It doesn't feel really so bad for black because he's about to play bishop g7, show castle, maybe c5, knight c6, everything is cool. Well, we'll see. So I play queen g4. This is a great move because first it's important to bring the queen in the game. Black went here, queen e7, I play knight f3, bishop g7, and now the big question, how to continue. So if you're playing normal chess how you're supposed to play, you're thinking probably, well yeah, I have to castle short because I mean I have developed all of my pieces and now castling short probably is in order, right? So let's say black will play knight c6, hit the pawn on e5 here, we develop the bishop here, black goes here, we play something like rook d1, bishop d7, rook e1, whatever, and the game continues. Okay, maybe not rook da because I'm blundering a bishop g5, but you get the point. The game continues, so it's very logical. Well, sometimes the rules are meant to be broken. And if you see something specific in the position, you can make the correct adjustments. So I played this game from the white's perspective and I noticed I can castle short, but also the black king is quite weak, meaning his king side is not having the support with a pawn on f7. So it gave me an idea. How about I play h4? So my idea is really simple. I want to play h5. I want to take with a queen, maybe knight g5, maybe bishop g5 and start a king set attack. We'll see what to do with the king on e1. So my opponent played knight c6, counterattacking the pawn on e5. Well, I defended it with bishop f4. Now he realized he's in trouble. Because he could have really played short castle, there's going to be h5. This is a suicide, right? There's a crazy attack here happening. For example, g takes on h5. I'm already thinking about some sacrifice ideas. Queen h5, knight g5. Just looks terrible. Even queen h5 probably is a mate on the board. Rook h5 also looks pretty good. So he could have castle short. He decided to deflect my attention and play b5, which is a pretty nice idea. So his idea is that he says, take my pawn on b5, but let me be at the king side. So for example, after bishop takes on b5, bishop d7, maybe I will get carried away. I have an extra pawn. I'm supposed to trade off all the pieces, get an endgame, like typical excuse that many players have in this position. And then I will get away my focus from going for the attack. But actually, when you look at the position deeper, you realize nothing has changed. So I can still proceed with my attack. So my opponent is trying to distract me. I'm going with my plan. So I'm playing h5. Well, now what? I don't know. G takes on h5 is looking so bad for many reasons. Probably the simple rook takes on h5. There's a check on g6 at some point threatening, and the king is in trouble. So he decided to play bishop a6 and sacrifice the pawn on g6. Now the idea is that if you take on g6, black plays h6, and he's sort of secure. So there's no bishop g5 anymore. The pawn on h6 is kind of protected. White has the extra pawn, but it's going nowhere. And black at the same time is thinking about conjuring some sort of a counterplay at a queen. So let's say you go long castle, maybe there's b4, and suddenly it's not so simple. Well, who said I have to take the pawn on g6? And here I saw an amazing combination which involves a queen sacrifice. Yeah, you heard it right, a queen sacrifice. So it's not very obvious where it is, but I saw the sequence very clearly from starting this moment. So I play h6. His only move, as you can see, is only bishop f8. Now I play bishop g5. I hit the queen. Where to go? Queen d7 seems to be the only move, because if he plays queen f7, I hit the rook on h8, he goes here, and after knight g5, everything just starts to fall apart. I like queen e6, knight e6, whatever. It's just looking really bad. So that's why he played queen d7. I went here, bishop f6, rook g8. So it seems the black is holding on, because if I play knight g5, I hit the pawn on e6, I don't know, maybe knight e8 or something. It looks really terrible, I don't argue, but maybe bishop c8 and black is somehow holding on. But actually there's a stronger move. When you notice the pawn on h6 is incredibly strong, you can push it forward. But what stops it from pushed forward is the pawn on h7. There you go. Bishop takes on g6. This is what I played. So the idea is that now, if black plays h takes on g6, the h pawn advances. So he played rook takes on g6. I was super excited to sacrifice the queen, because you can imagine, I mean, at that age, I hadn't really played many games with a queen sacrifice in one game. So h takes on g6 played. Now h7 advances. He cannot stop this pawn. Like if he plays bishop g7, I just take it. And the h-pawn promoted even more. There's another rook at a8 hanging. So what he did, he tried to organize some counterplay. But he's already dead lost. So he played d4, I promote, and he played d takes on c3. So his idea was, in case I'm doing something at the king side, maybe he gets to play knight b4, knight c2, or knight e3, or maybe b4, queen d3, queen e2, etc, etc, etc. This was the moment when I was able to sacrifice the queen for a second time in the same game. And up to this moment, it remains the only game in my career where I sacrificed the queen twice. So I played queen takes on f8, rook h8 check, and my opponent actually thought that initially after king f7 I'm gonna play rook h7, king e8 is gonna be a draw. Well, actually no, it's knight g5, mate on the board. And I was so excited about this. Again, I was not really getting used to sacrifice pieces left and right back then, because I was purely positional player, and I was just making my steps on being a more creative player, and sacrifice one queen in a game already was fantastic, but two queens? That was just mind-boggling. And up to date, it remains one of my most memorable games I have played in my career. I mean, of course, the entire combination is pretty simple, but it is very, very a memorable game. So I hope you enjoyed the game. If you liked it, please don't forget to press like and write your comments. What do you think about it? Would you have found it yourself? And of course, if you enjoy my content, you would like to see more stuff coming from me, please consider subscribing to my channel, because this is going to allow me to produce more content. Thank you for watching. Arturs signing off.